Dark side of the nursery rhymes. London Bridge is falling down. The bridge had always been there, its stone foundation sinking into the murky waters below. The villagers whispered of its curse, how it was never truly stable, never truly safe. No matter how many times it was rebuilt, the bridge always seemed to crumble, as if something beneath it was trying to rise. But there was an old story, one rarely spoken aloud, the legend of the buried bride. It was said that when the bridge was first constructed, the foundation would not hold. Stones would collapse overnight, wood would rot within days, and the river would rise unnaturally high, swallowing entire sections of the structure. The builders, desperate and running out of time, turned to an ancient belief: a human sacrifice would bind the bridge together. The lord of the land made his choice. A young woman, newly married, was taken in the dead of night. Her screams were muffled by the rushing water as she was dragged to the unfinished archway, her white gown trailing behind her like a funeral shroud. Brick by brick, they sealed her in, her body pressed against the cold stone, her tears mixing with the damp mortar. No one spoke of her again. The bridge was finished. It held. But some debts do not remain buried. Centuries later, a group of children played by the riverbanks, singing the old rhyme as they skipped stones across the dark waters. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. Their laughter was swallowed by the wind as one little girl, Emily, wandered closer to the bridge. A chill ran down her spine as she placed her hand on the stone, feeling something cold seep through her fingertips. The rough surface shifted beneath her touch, as if something inside was breathing. That night, Emily dreamt of a woman in white. Her face was pale, hollow, her eyes sockets of endless dark. Her lips moved, but no sound came out, just the muffled screams of a voice lost to time. Days later, cracks appeared in the bridge. The stones trembled, shifting slightly, as if something within was pushing outward. The villagers dismissed it at first until a fisherman vanished near the bridge, his boat found drifting empty, the wood splintered as if something had dragged him under. More people disappeared. A traveler who paused to rest on the bridge, a mason inspecting the cracks, and each time, the whispers grew louder. Then one night, the bells of the village tolled without wind. A thick fog rolled in, swallowing the bridge whole. Those who dared to look outside saw her. A woman in white, standing at the center of the bridge. Her veil hung damp and tattered, her gown clinging to her skeletal frame. And though her mouth did not move, her voice rang in their heads, whispering a lullaby that had been buried in stone for centuries. The bridge trembled. The villagers fled. And by morning, the structure had crumbled once again, just as it always had. But this time, the stones that fell into the river left something behind. Bones. A single human skull, its mouth frozen in a silent, eternal scream. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. And it always will. 3 blind mice. The nursery rhyme was simple, innocent to those who didn't know the truth. 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice. See how they run, see how they run. But the 3 were not mice, and they had not been blind. Not at first. The nobleman known as Lord Withers was a cruel man, his greed as sharp as the butcher's blade he so often used to punish those who defied him. He ruled his land with an iron grip, taking what he pleased and cutting down anyone who got in his way. But 3 young boys, desperate and starving, had stolen from him. Just a small bundle of food, bread, cheese, a few apples. Nothing of great value to the Lord, but everything to the orphans who had spent weeks with nothing but hunger gnawing at their bellies. They were caught before they could flee. Lord Withers made an example of them. The punishment was cruel, far beyond mere retribution. He had their eyes taken, not with a swift motion, not mercifully but slowly, methodically, with a red-hot knife that left them screaming until their voices cracked. The servants were forced to watch, silent and terrified, as the nobleman laughed, relishing their agony. The boys were left for dead in the cold fields beyond the village. But they did not die. Something found them. Weeks later, the killings began. Lord Withers awoke to the sound of skittering something sharp against the stone floor. He dismissed it as rats until he saw them. 3 figures, hunched and twisted, standing at the edge of his chamber. Their eye sockets were empty, but they saw him nonetheless. See how they run, see how they run. The words echoed, though no lips moved. The first to die was the steward, found in the hallway with his throat carved open, his eyes missing. Then the cook, his hands severed at the wrists, his body dragged through the halls as though by something unseen. The house fell into panic as servants fled into the night, leaving Lord Withers alone with the monsters he had created. They came for him last. He locked himself in his chambers, praying, his fingers trembling as he gripped the very same knife he had used to blind them. The candlelight flickered. The walls creaked. Then came the sound claws against wood, soft laughter from the darkness. They all ran after the farmer's wife, who cut off their tails with a carving knife. The nobleman's screams echoed through the night, but by morning, there was only silence. The mansion stood empty. The only sign of what had happened was the trail of blood leading from the chamber to the cellar, where deep scratch marks adorned the floor. No bodies were ever found. But the villagers spoke of 3 shadowy figures who roamed the land, waiting, hunting. And each time the rhyme was sung, the wind carried their laughter.
If you're hooked, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us at Veil of Dark Whispers for even more terrifying tales. The darkness is just getting started.